The Lean Startup by Ries. This video is made for educational purposes only. Did you catch that fascinating story about the college students who built a startup from scratch? Yeah, that's where I got my start. It was like that. We had a great idea. We had a great team, but we didn't know how to turn our ideas into a real company. That was a tough one. It's like having a vision but no plan to get there. That's where the Lean Startup comes in. The Lean Startup is all about taking a bold leap and then testing it out, learning from the results, and pivoting if necessary. It's not about waiting for perfection. It's about iterating quickly and learning from each iteration. It's all about building a sustainable business, not just a product. Now, let's talk about the 5 key principles of the Lean Startup. 1. Entrepreneurs are everywhere. Just because you're not in a garage doesn't mean you can't be an entrepreneur. This principle reminds us that anyone can start a business, regardless of where they work or what they do. Whether you're a software engineer, a marketing manager, or a salesperson, you can contribute to building a successful company. 2. Entrepreneurship is management. This is a bit of a mouthful, isn't it? But it means that running a startup is more than just making a product. It's about managing the entire process. From product development to marketing, from hiring to customer service, every aspect of the business needs to be managed effectively. It's about balancing risk, resources, and innovation. 3. Validated learning. This principle is all about learning as you go. Instead of planning everything ahead of time, the Lean Startup approach is all about experimenting and discovering what works. It's about testing assumptions and validating them through data. 4. Build, measure, learn. This is the heart of the Lean Startup. It's about turning ideas into products, measuring how well they perform, and then learning whether to keep going or pivot. The key is to create a feedback loop that allows you to iterate quickly and adapt to new information. It's about turning a big idea into a successful business. 5. Innovation accounting. This principle is all about keeping track of progress and measuring success. It involves setting clear goals, tracking milestones, and prioritizing tasks. It's about turning a company's resources into a measurable outcome. It's about turning a dream into a reality. These principles are like building blocks for creating a successful startup. They're about turning ideas into reality, learning as you go, and adapting to new information. And, most importantly, they're about keeping it simple and focused on the core goals. So, the Lean Startup is all about turning a vision into a reality, managing the process effectively, and learning as you go. It's about iterating quickly and adapting to new information. It's about turning a big idea into a successful business. Keep that in mind as we move forward. The Lean Startup is a powerful tool for anyone looking to start a new business. It's about taking a bold leap, testing it out, learning from the results, and adapting. It's about turning a vision into a reality, managing the process effectively, and learning as you go. I'm here to help. But here's the catch. Managing that startup isn't just about running it like a regular job. It's about navigating the unique challenges and opportunities of innovation and doing it in a way that leverages creativity, flexibility, and continuous learning. Now let's unpack some key concepts that entrepreneurs need to understand and apply. First up, let's talk about the difference between traditional management and entrepreneurship. Many entrepreneurs are quick to dismiss standard management techniques because they fear they might stifle their innovative spirit or lead to bureaucratic delays. But history tells us that traditional management has been instrumental in bringing about unprecedented material abundance. Think of the Industrial Revolution and how factories and assembly lines transformed the world. These systems, however, didn't always align perfectly with the chaotic and uncertain nature of startups. Now, let's consider the current landscape. The world has changed dramatically, and so has the role of entrepreneurs. More people are starting businesses than ever before, driven by factors like globalization, technological advancements, and shifting consumer preferences. While this has created new opportunities, it has also brought with it a level of unpredictability and complexity that traditional management frameworks aren't equipped to handle. Enter the lean startup movement. Named after the lean manufacturing principles developed by Toyota, lean thinking emphasizes reducing waste, improving efficiency, and focusing on what truly adds value. In the context of entrepreneurship, lean encourages startups to measure progress differently, using validated learning instead of traditional metrics like production volume. This shift helps entrepreneurs identify and eliminate the sources of waste that plague their ventures, enabling them to focus on what really matters: the products and services that customers want and will pay for. So, what does this mean in practice? Well, let's say you're working on a new app idea. Instead of trying to predict exactly how many users will download it, you might focus on testing specific features and gathering user feedback to refine your product. This approach allows you to iterate quickly and adapt to changing market conditions, rather than getting stuck in a rigid plan that might not align with actual customer needs. Another crucial aspect of lean startup is the concept of the build, measure, learn feedback loop. Imagine you're starting a new business and need to decide whether to develop a new product. Rather than making a detailed plan and setting unrealistic goals, you might choose to build a small prototype and release it to a limited audience. You then gather data on how users interact with the product and use this feedback to make informed decisions about future developments. This process of constant testing and adjustment ensures that you're always moving forward based on real-world evidence rather than just guesswork. But remember, lean isn't just about speed and efficiency. It's also about maintaining focus and clarity on your mission. As Henry Ford once said, "The mark of an enterprise is not the number of its products, but the number of its failures." Lean encourages entrepreneurs to embrace failure as a learning opportunity and to keep refining their strategies until they hit the right sweet spot. In conclusion, entrepreneurial management is about adapting traditional management principles to the unique challenges of startups. It's about embracing innovation, fostering flexibility, and prioritizing validated learning over rigid plans. By applying these concepts, entrepreneurs can navigate the complexities of the startup ecosystem and create businesses that not only survive but thrive in an increasingly competitive world. Next time, we'll explore how to apply these principles in action, using real-life examples and case studies to illustrate the power of lean startup methodologies in shaping successful ventures. Chapter: Define who exactly is an entrepreneur. Narrator: Hey there! Welcome to our journey through the world of entrepreneurship. Today we're diving deep into the core question: who exactly is an entrepreneur? This might sound like a simple question, but it's actually a fundamental one that gets at the very essence of what it means to start and grow a business. Let's unpack it together. Narrator: First off, let's clear up a common misconception. Just because someone runs a large company doesn't mean they're not an entrepreneur. Many of the most successful entrepreneurs we know come from the ranks of corporate management. Think about Mark, who I met at one of my talks. He's the leader of a division within a large company, tasked with creating new ventures and product innovations. He's not just managing internal politics, he's navigating the corporate policies, personnel, and processes to get things done. His success is a testament to his ability to adapt and innovate within a structured environment. Narrator: Now, what does it take to be an entrepreneur? Let's break it down. 1. Proper team structure. Just like Mark, a great entrepreneur needs to build a well-structured team. They must know how to form autonomous divisions with separate profit and loss statements, P&Ls, shield controversial teams from corporate meddling, and ensure they have a cohesive yet flexible structure. 2. Good personnel. The team isn't just a bunch of individuals. It's a carefully selected group of people who share a vision and are committed to the mission. The entrepreneur must find the right talent, foster a positive culture, and empower their team to innovate. 3. Strong vision for the future. An entrepreneur sees the future clearly. They have a vision for how their companies can evolve and adapt to new challenges. This foresight is crucial because it guides their decisions and helps them identify opportunities that others might miss. 4. Appetite for risk-taking. Entrepreneurs take risks. They step out of their comfort zones, pivot when necessary, and are willing to fail. This risk-taking spirit is what drives them to push boundaries and explore new possibilities. Narrator. So when we talk about entrepreneurs, we're not just referring to those who started with a garage and a few dollars. We're talking about anyone who can turn raw materials of innovation into real-world breakthrough successes. Whether you're an entrepreneur working inside a large company or a seasoned visionary leading a startup from the heart of the corporate jungle, you're an entrepreneur. Narrator, but what exactly is a startup? Here's where things get interesting. A startup is a human institution designed to create a new product or service under conditions of extreme uncertainty. It's not just about the product or service itself, but the entire process of building and launching it. A startup is greater than the sum of its parts. It's an acutely human enterprise. Narrator, the word institution can be misleading. While a startup might seem bureaucratic and slow at first, it's actually full of activities associated with building an institution, hiring creative employees, coordinating their activities, and creating a company culture that delivers results. The product or service might be a new innovation, but it's also about uncovering new sources of value for customers and caring about the impact of its product on those customers. Narrator. Now, let's talk about the context in which startups operate. Most businesses, large and small alike, are excluded from this context. A startup is designed to confront situations of extreme uncertainty. It's about taking risks, exploring new territories, and breaking free from traditional constraints. While startups might compete with established companies, they do so on their own terms, driven by innovation and a desire to disrupt the status quo. Narrator, one of the most fascinating aspects of startups is that they can emerge from anywhere. SnapTax, for instance, was born from Intuit, a giant player in the finance and accounting space. The team at SnapTax wasn't working in a garage or eating ramen noodles. They were part of a massive organization, yet they were entrepreneurs. This story shows us that success doesn't always require a specific setting. It can happen anywhere, given the right conditions and mindset. Narrator. So when you hear someone say they're an entrepreneur, remember that it's not just about the product or service. It's about the process of creation, the risk-taking, and the ability to innovate in the face of uncertainty. This is what sets true entrepreneurs apart from anyone else. Narrator. As we wrap up this chapter, let's reflect on what we've learned. Being an entrepreneur means embracing uncertainty, taking calculated risks, and building something new. It's about seeing the future and being willing to go after it, even if it means leaving behind everything you know. Narrator. So if you're reading this and feel like you might be an entrepreneur, or if you're already one, take a moment to appreciate what you've accomplished. Your journey, no matter where it started, is a testament to your courage and vision. Keep innovating, keep taking risks, and never stop pushing the boundaries of what's possible. Narrator, that's the core of entrepreneurship. It's about defining the impossible, defying the status quo, and creating something that matters. The chapter we're diving into today is titled Learn, and it's a pivotal chapter that delves deep into the challenges entrepreneurs face when trying to measure progress in uncertain markets. In traditional methods, entrepreneurs would rely on metrics like on-time delivery and budget adherence to gauge success. However, as businesses grow and become more complex, these metrics become insufficient. Entrepreneurs often resort to learning as an excuse for failure, but this approach is unhelpful for employees, investors, and the entire organization. The chapter introduces the concept of validated learning from the lean startup model. Validated learning is a rigorous method for demonstrating progress through empirical evidence, setting it apart from post facto explanations or marketing campaigns. The key idea here is to learn about the true needs of customers and the viability of strategies rather than relying on market forecasts or classical planning. To illustrate this point, the chapter provides an example from IMVU's founding. When the company faced significant setbacks with its initial product, it persisted because of fear of negative publicity and the desire for immediate feedback. Eventually, they realized that their strategic analysis was flawed and began to learn through customer interaction. By experimenting with different versions and engaging with potential users, they discovered that the product needed to be tailored to individual preferences. This led to the development of a single-player version that was more appealing to customers. The essence of validated learning is to continuously test hypotheses and improve based on real-world outcomes, rather than relying on past experiences or assumptions. This approach is crucial in startup environments, where the ability to adapt and learn is key to survival. Now, let's talk about the IMVU team's journey in this chapter. Initially, the team faced significant setbacks with their single-player experience, which led them to introduce Chat Now. While this feature initially met with resistance from customers, it eventually became popular due to its ability to enhance user engagement. The team's realization that customers preferred seamless integration with existing IM platforms underscores the significance of a customer-centric approach in product development. The narrative emphasizes the value of continuous experimentation and feedback loops. By conducting thought experiments and controlled experiments with customers, the team was able to refine their product and strategy based on real-world outcomes. This approach helped them avoid wasting resources on features that were not aligned with customer needs. The team also identified and eliminated unnecessary features and assumptions, focusing on what truly mattered, what created value for their customers. In summary, the chapter reinforces the central theme of validated learning and the importance of iterating based on customer feedback in the startup environment. It illustrates how the IMVU team's initial failures and subsequent adjustments led to a more effective product and ultimately success. So, the key takeaway from this chapter is that validated learning is essential for entrepreneurs to measure progress in uncertain markets. It involves rigorous experimentation and continuous learning, which allows startups to adapt and evolve based on real-world outcomes rather than relying on past experiences or assumptions. By focusing on customer needs and validating their hypotheses through empirical evidence, startups can build sustainable and successful businesses. You know how you start with a hypothesis? You think, hey, maybe if we offer free shipping, people will buy more stuff. That's a hypothesis. And then you go out there and test that hypothesis by offering free shipping and seeing if it actually works. If it does, great. But if not, you learn something new and you adjust your strategy. Now, this isn't just for startups, it's for everyone. Whether you're running a small business or a big company, you want to test things before you invest all your time and money. In fact, one of the best examples I can give you is Zappos, the online shoe retailer. They started with a very small experiment. They thought maybe people want to buy shoes online. So they launched an online shoe store, and sure enough, lots of people bought shoes. From that experiment, they learned that people do indeed want to shop online. So they expanded, grew, and became a global giant. Another great example is HP. They had a hypothesis that employees would volunteer more if they could choose when and how they volunteered. So they tried that out, and it worked. Employees were happy, and they got more volunteers than ever before. This was a small-scale experiment that led to a huge transformation in how HP ran its employee programs. So, the key takeaway here is that experimentation is not just about throwing out ideas, it's about gathering data and learning from it. Small experiments help you refine your hypotheses and make informed decisions. This is why we say, start small but learn big. Now, let's talk about why this matters. In a fast-paced world, companies need to be nimble and responsive. Traditional planning methods can be slow and rigid, but experimentation allows you to adapt quickly to changes and opportunities. It's like having a magic wand that turns ideas into reality without all the hassle and risk of trying everything at once. But here's the tricky part. You have to balance between exploration, trying new things, and exploitation, taking advantage of what you've learned. Sometimes you need to take risks, but you also need to make sure those risks are well thought out. It's like being a chef. Cooking a dish requires both creativity and caution. Lastly, remember that the lean startup method isn't just for startups. It can be applied in any context where you're trying to solve a problem or build something new. It's a tool for continuous improvement and innovation, no matter what industry you're in. So, next time you have a hypothesis, don't just run it by your boss or team. Go out there and test it. Because in the end, the most important thing is not what you believe, but what you learn. The chapter we're diving into today is Leap, and it's all about taking bold, experimental steps to validate your assumptions and grow your business. It's a story that really drives home the importance of not letting preconceived notions or traditional metrics dictate how you proceed with your startup. Let's start with the very beginning. In 2004, a group of 3 college friends, Mark Zuckerberg, Eduardo Saverin, and Chris Hughes, had a simple idea: a way to connect people through a social platform. They started Facebook, and guess what? It worked. They didn't need a massive marketing campaign or lots of funding. They just had a product that people loved. They sold their company for $1 billion, proving that validation can happen quickly and efficiently. Now, let's talk about why this matters. Investors often have preconceived notions about startups. They think they won't succeed without heavy marketing, or that they shouldn't charge customers. But as we've seen with Facebook, startups can thrive without those things. The key is to validate your assumptions early. If you're thinking about launching a new product, don't assume everything will work out perfectly from day one. You need to experiment and learn from the data. Think about it like this: you're building a house. You might have some assumptions about how the house will look, but until you actually build it, you can't know for sure. So, you take small steps, make changes, and see what works. That's exactly what startups do. They make small changes, test them, and adjust their strategy based on what they learn. This is called lean startup, and it's a powerful tool for startups. But here's the tricky part: not everyone gets it. Some investors and business leaders still believe that startups need to charge customers right away or invest heavily in marketing. They think it's a riskier approach, but as we saw with Facebook, sometimes the best strategies are the ones that work first. It's about finding the sweet spot where you can validate your assumptions while minimizing risk. So, how do you do that? Let's talk about some key examples. One example is the Toyota Sienna. In 2003, Toyota decided to introduce a new minivan called the Sienna. They spent a lot of money on internal comfort features like extra legroom and better climate control. Why? Because they understood that families with children needed these features. In 2004, when the Sienna came out, its sales increased by 60% compared to the previous year. This shows us that by listening to customers and aligning your product development with their needs, you can see real results. Another example comes from Intuit, the company behind QuickBooks. When they started, Scott Cook wanted to create a software product for businesses to handle their finances. But he knew it would be tough to sell to businesses without showing them that it worked. So, he did something different. He made initial phone calls to ordinary consumers to see if they found manual bill payment and expense tracking frustrating. His research showed that many consumers were frustrated, validating his idea and providing the confidence needed to pursue a solution. This approach is all about using first-hand customer knowledge to guide your decisions. It's not just about what you think your customers want, it's about what they actually need. And that's exactly what successful entrepreneurs do. They don't rely on assumptions. They validate their assumptions by gathering data and learning from their customers. Finally, let's talk about the Toyota production system and its principle of Genchi Genbutsu. This means going to the source to understand customer needs. It's all about first-hand experience and not just relying on second-hand information. As Toyota discovered with the Sienna, getting this first-hand knowledge can lead to incredible success. In conclusion, LEAP is about taking bold, experimental steps to validate your assumptions and grow your business. It's about not letting preconceived notions or traditional metrics dictate your path. Instead, focus on understanding your customers, experimenting, and learning. And remember, the best strategies are the ones that work first. Just like Facebook and the Toyota Sienna, you can find success by validating your assumptions early and using first-hand customer knowledge to guide your decisions. So, the next time you're starting a new project or venture, don't be afraid to take risks. Validate your assumptions, gather data, and learn from your customers. And most importantly, keep moving forward, because that's how you leap ahead. It's a critical tool in the lean startup methodology because it helps you validate hypotheses and make informed decisions about product direction. Let's start with a classic example: Dropbox. Drew Houston, Dropbox's CEO, created a 3-minute video showcasing file synchronization capabilities. This simple video was an MVP, allowing Dropbox to learn quickly and refine its product without significant upfront investment. The video acted as a test, helping Dropbox understand what worked and what didn't, and it resulted in a massive increase in user signups. So, an MVP isn't just a fancy name. It's a powerful tool that helps you get things moving fast. Now let's look at another example: Food on the Table. Manuel Rosso, the CEO of Food on the Table, provided a weekly meal plan and grocery list based on user preferences. By allowing users to sign up for the service, Rosso tested the MVP by gathering feedback and refining the product. This approach allowed the startup to learn and adapt to market feedback more effectively. So, even though these examples come from very different industries, the principle of using an MVP to test and refine your product is universal. But here's the really important part: the lean startup approach. It's not just about creating an MVP, it's about understanding the needs and preferences of customers, iterating quickly, and continuously improving based on customer feedback. The lean startup emphasizes the importance of customer-focused design, iterative learning, continuous improvement, automation, and scaling. These principles are designed to help startups learn quickly and adapt to market changes, ultimately leading to greater success. So, when you're thinking about building an MVP, remember these key points. 1. Customer-focused design. Understand what your customers need and want. This is where the lean startup method really shines. By interviewing potential customers in local supermarkets and moms groups, you can gain insights into what they need and make your product better. 2. Iterative learning. Learn more about what works and what doesn't through each interaction with customers. Start with minimal resources and gradually add features to meet customer needs. This approach will help you refine your product and make better decisions about what to prioritize next. 3. Continuous improvement. As each new customer is onboarded, focus on the same grocery store to gain familiarity with the products and the types of people who shop there. This allows you to provide personalized service and collect valuable feedback. 4. Automation and scaling. Once the MVP becomes successful, the team can start investing more resources and scaling up. This is where the lean startup really comes to life, allowing startups to grow and adapt to changing market conditions. 5. Legal issues. While building an MVP, consider the legal issues that might arise. Patents, trademarks, and other intellectual property considerations are important, but they should be weighed against the learning benefits of an MVP. 6. Fears of competitors. Fear of competitors stealing ideas is a common concern, but startups can mitigate this by leveraging secrecy and prioritizing their development over those of established companies. 7. Branding risks. Consider launching the MVP under a different brand name to minimize the risk of brand damage. And be prepared for the possibility of negative press, but don't let that stop you from learning and growing. Building an MVP is a delicate balance between learning and risk management. It requires careful consideration of these potential pitfalls to avoid derailing a startup effort. However, if you approach it with the right mindset and strategy, an MVP can be a powerful tool for validating hypotheses, making informed decisions, and ultimately driving your startup towards success. So, go ahead and build that MVP. It's a test, but also an opportunity to learn and grow. Remember, the goal isn't just to create something perfect, but to create something that meets the needs of your customers and sets you up for long-term success. I'll take you through the key ideas in this chapter on measure from the Lean Startup, explaining why they matter and providing some practical examples to illustrate the concepts. Measure in the Lean Startup. Measurement plays a critical role in bridging the gap between a startup's reality and its business plan. Instead of relying solely on optimistic assumptions, startups must actively measure their progress against specific metrics. This rigorous approach ensures they are not just surviving, but continuously improving their product and business model. 1. Rigorously measure current reality. The first principle is to rigorously measure current reality. This means confronting hard truths revealed by measurements. For instance, when a startup starts a project, it might believe there will be a sudden surge in demand. But after gathering data, the team realizes that demand is actually lower than expected. Understanding this reality helps the team pivot quickly and adapt their strategy. 2. Devise experiments. Next, startups must devise experiments to learn and move closer to the ideal business plan. This involves tracking key metrics like customer conversions, trial usage, and lifetime value. For example, if a startup is launching a new app, they might track conversion rates, retention rates, and customer satisfaction scores to see how well the app is performing. 3. Avoid persevering too long. Another important principle is to avoid persevering too long without making progress. Many startups fail due to persistence without progress. Optimal strategies require continuous iteration and adaptation based on measured outcomes. For instance, if a startup is developing a product, it might spend months tweaking features before realizing that a simpler design works better. By pivoting early, the team can save time and resources. 4. Innovative accounting. Developing a new type of accounting specifically tailored for startups is crucial. This involves establishing a minimum viable product, MVP, setting clear metrics, and continually refining the product based on data-driven decisions. For example, a startup might start with a simple MVP that tracks basic metrics like signups and retention rates. As they gather more data, they can refine the product and adjust the metrics accordingly. 5. Pivot or persevere. Lastly, startups must continuously monitor progress and pivot when necessary to align with their goals. Persistence is crucial but must be balanced with the ability to adapt and improve. For example, if a startup is developing a product, it might spend weeks tweaking features before realizing that a simpler design works better. By pivoting early, the team can save time and resources. Example: IMVU. Let's look at a real-world example from IMVU, a social networking platform. IMVU started with a traditional approach of increasing customer numbers through registration and paying customers. However, they realized that relying solely on total number of customers and total paying customers was not sufficient to measure true progress. They shifted to cohort analysis, which involved analyzing each group of customers separately to identify trends and determine which product improvements were truly effective. Cohort analysis. IMVU used cohort analysis to understand customer behavior and growth patterns. They identified that while the percentage of new customers who logged into the product increased from 5% to 20%, the number of customers who paid for the service remained stagnant at 1%. This stark contrast highlighted the need for a more nuanced approach to measuring success. Actionable metrics to address these issues, IMVU adopted a different approach. They shifted from relying on vanity metrics, total number of customers, to actionable metrics that provided a clearer picture of the startup's progress. This shift allowed them to identify areas where the product was not performing well and to make informed decisions about what changes to implement. Case study. Grocket Farb Nivi, the founder of Grocket, provides an excellent example of how actionable metrics can guide a startup's growth. Unlike IMVU, which initially focused on increasing the number of customers through traditional methods, Grocket adopted a more innovative approach based on peer-to-peer learning and technology. Hypothesis testing Farb realized that his original educational design was outdated and that today's students were not being served as well as they could be. He decided to redesign learning with today's technology in mind, applying technology and algorithms to optimize traditional learning formats. Grocket offers three main formats of studying: spending time with experts, studying independently, and studying with peers. Kanban system Grocket started as a minimum viable product, MVP, with Farb teaching test prep via WebEx. Despite initial success, Grocket struggled with growth. The Grocket team followed standard agile development practices, including writing user stories from the customer's perspective and reprioritizing features based on customer feedback. However, they found that relying solely on vanity metrics, such as total number of customers and questions answered, was not sufficient to measure true progress. Farb realized that Grocket's success was being measured incorrectly, leading him to switch to cohort-based metrics and conduct split tests to evaluate new features. Transparency and openness. The lean startup philosophy emphasizes the need for disciplined experimentation and continuous improvement, focusing on actionable, accessible, and auditable metrics. This approach ensures that teams are constantly testing and refining their products, rather than getting caught up in the glamour and excitement of a successful venture. The chapter further highlights the importance of transparency and openness in reporting, emphasizing that clear and understandable metrics help build trust within the organization and foster a culture of learning and adaptation. By focusing on these principles, startups can achieve sustained growth and success. Understanding current reality, devising experiments, avoiding perseverance, developing innovative accounting, and continuously monitoring progress and pivoting when necessary are all essential steps in the lean startup methodology. These principles enable startups to make data-driven decisions, adapt quickly to changing circumstances, and ultimately achieve sustainable growth and success. So, we're talking about pivot in the lean startup, and it's all about those tricky decisions entrepreneurs have to make. You know, the big question, do I keep going with my original idea, or do I change it? And let me tell you, it's not always an easy choice. But here's the thing, both pivoting and persevering are really important, and they depend on what kind of market feedback you get. If you're doing great with your original plan, keep going. But if things aren't quite working out, pivot. That means you change your strategy, maybe even completely. And guess what? Sometimes pivoting can lead to even better outcomes than sticking with your original plan. Now, let's talk about the human element. Science is great, but it can't replace the gut feeling and creativity that entrepreneurs bring to the table. We all know that sometimes we need to listen to our instincts and make decisions based on what feels right, not just on data. David Benetti, who is the founder of Votizen, has a great example to show us. He started out trying to build a social networking site, but he realized he didn't want to do that. Instead, he pivoted and built a platform where people could register as customers, kind of like a credit card sign-up system. This was a huge success, with a 51% sign-up rate and 92% activation rate. What's amazing about this is that he didn't just stop there. He kept learning and iterating. He learned that people wanted more from his service, so he pivoted again. He shifted from a social networking site to a lobbying platform for politicians, which turned out to be a huge hit. He did another pivot and diversified into B2B solutions, which were more profitable. But then he faced some challenges with scalability and profitability. So he did another pivot and went back to focusing on consumer clients. Each of these pivots provided him with valuable data, helping him refine his strategies and improve his metrics. It's all about continuous learning and validation, which is a big part of the lean startup philosophy. Now, let's talk about validation. It's not just about collecting data, it's about using that data to make smart decisions. For example, if you're building a product and you don't see the results you expected, don't be afraid to pivot. Remember, the goal is to figure out what works best for your users and market. And let's not forget the importance of courage in pivoting. It's hard, especially when you're used to a certain way of doing things. But having the courage to change course and adapt can lead to incredible outcomes. It's all about embracing uncertainty and being willing to try new things. So, in summary, pivoting is all about using data to make informed decisions, and it's not always easy. But if you're doing it the right way, it can lead to massive success. And remember, continuous learning is key. Keep iterating, keep validating, and keep improving. That's the essence of pivot in the lean startup. Now, go out there and make your own bold moves. It's all about how big companies and startups alike can get better at making stuff, but instead of doing it all at once, they do it in smaller, more manageable chunks. That's what we call batch, and it's really important. Imagine you have a big pile of envelopes, and every time you fold one, you put it in a big stack. If anything goes wrong, like a tear or a crease, you have to start all over again. That's not very efficient, is it? Now imagine if you folded just one envelope at a time, checking for any issues along the way. You'd catch those mistakes earlier, and you'd have a much cleaner stack of finished envelopes. That's the idea behind small batches. In manufacturing, this concept is known as the Toyota production system. They use small batches to make sure every piece of their cars is perfect before they move on to the next one. It's like being a chef in a restaurant, where you cook just one dish at a time so you can keep an eye on everything. This way, you can spot problems early and fix them, rather than having to redo everything after something goes wrong. In the context of startups, we see this play out differently. Companies like IMVU, which is a game company, use continuous deployment. Instead of releasing games in huge updates, they release tiny bits of their games every day. This way, they can catch bugs and tweak things quickly, and they can test the games on real players before rolling them out to everyone else. It's like having a small batch of cookies instead of one big batch. You can taste them as they're being made and adjust based on feedback. Why is this important? Well, think about it. When you're making something in big batches, even if everything is perfect, there's still a lot of waste. You spend a lot of time and resources on making something that ends up not being used. But when you make small batches, you can see exactly what's going wrong and fix it before it becomes a big problem. It's like having a little test kitchen where you can try out recipes without spending too much money. But here's the kicker. This isn't just about making things. It's also about how it affects the whole company. When you have small batches, you can change your plans and your products much more easily. You don't have to worry about having too many products on the shelf because they aren't selling. You can focus on what people want and make it happen quickly. And guess what? This doesn't just work in manufacturing. It works in education, healthcare, and even in software development. Let me give you some examples. First, in education, there's this company called School of One. They're like a personal tutor for each student, using small batches of information to personalize learning. This means teachers can experiment with different teaching methods and quickly see what works best. It's like having a classroom where every student gets exactly what they need, and the teacher can adjust based on feedback. Second, in healthcare, hospitals can use small batches of medications and blood tests. This means they can get things done faster and more accurately, which is really important for patients. Instead of having to wait days for a test result, they can get it back in hours. And by using small batches, they can reduce costs and improve efficiency. Finally, in the realm of software development, companies like Alphabet Energy are using the same principles. They're experimenting with new technologies in small batches, learning from early adopters, and making adjustments based on feedback. This way, they can innovate faster and more effectively, staying ahead of the competition. So in summary, the chapter on batch is all about how small batch sizes and continuous deployment can make us more efficient, flexible, and responsive. It's about learning from our mistakes early, avoiding waste, and adapting quickly to changing circumstances. And it's not just about making things, it's about making the entire process work better, faster, and smarter. Two startups I'll be using for our discussion are a fitness app and a pizza delivery service, both facing similar growth challenges despite operating in very different industries. They both rely heavily on customer retention and repeat usage, which is what we call a sticky engine of growth. Imagine you have a fitness app. It's all about keeping people engaged and using it regularly. But here's the tricky part. Getting those people to keep coming back isn't easy. You might spend a lot of money trying to attract new users, but once they start using it, they stick around for a long time. That's what we mean by stickiness, and it's key to growing sustainably. Now there's another kind of engine of growth called the viral engine. This is where products spread through word of mouth, like when you tell everyone about your favorite restaurant because it's so good. The viral engine is driven by factors like high virality coefficients and user-generated content. These factors help drive rapid growth by leveraging social media, reviews, and recommendations. So, imagine if your fitness app had a viral component where users could share their workouts on Instagram and their friends saw it and signed up too. That's the kind of growth you want. But here's the thing, not all engines of growth are created equal. Focusing solely on increasing your advertising budget won't necessarily help you grow sustainably. Instead, what matters most is improving customer retention and making sure they engage with your product repeatedly. That's why it's crucial to prioritize customer experience and engagement over just getting more people to try your product. Let's move on to the next chapter, which talks about the paid engine of growth. This type of growth relies on significant financial investments in acquiring new customers. The key here is cost per acquisition, CPA, which is the amount you pay to get one new customer. It's a crucial metric because it tells you whether you're spending less than the revenue you'll generate from that customer later on, known as customer lifetime value, CLV. If CLV is greater than CPA, it means you're growing faster than you're spending, which is great. But if CPA is higher than CLV, you're spending more money than you're generating in return, and that's not sustainable. To illustrate this, let's look at a few examples. Retail chains often use the paid engine of growth by investing heavily in marketing campaigns. Outbound sales forces and heavy goods sales, like those selling big appliances, use this strategy too. Take a startup that started off as a tool for hobbyists, but eventually pivoted to serve large enterprises. By doing so, they increased the CLV significantly, which allowed them to sustain their growth. Another important concept in this chapter is product-market fit. This idea comes from Mark Andreessen and is crucial for startup success. It's about finding out which engine of growth works best for your business and aligning it with the needs of the market. Metrics like the viral coefficient and compound growth rate can help you gauge your progress towards achieving product-market fit. But here's the catch: every engine of growth has a limited lifespan. Once it reaches its peak, it starts to slow down or even stall. Successful startups need to continuously innovate and adjust their strategies to keep growing. This might mean exploring new growth avenues when current ones begin to plateau. So, to recap, the key takeaway here is that sustainable growth requires more than just focusing on one engine of growth. You need to manage multiple engines simultaneously, achieve product-market fit, and have an adaptive organization that can handle the shifting dynamics of growth. That's the essence of the chapter on Grow in the Lean Startup. It's about balancing different growth strategies, ensuring your business is aligned with market needs, and continuously innovating to stay competitive. And that's why I think this book is so valuable for entrepreneurs and startup founders. It gives you a framework for thinking about growth in a more nuanced and realistic way. As we dive deeper into the chapter on adaptation, let's revisit Eric Schmidt's journey at IMVU and see how it relates to today's business landscape. Eric, the CTO at IMVU, initially thought he was doing well by building an agile engineering organization and experimenting with lean startup principles. However, he frequently encountered situations where his teams were failing despite his best efforts. This realization pushed him to reflect deeply on the balance between speed and quality in startup environments. Eric's initial reluctance to invest in training is a common pitfall among many startups. They often prioritize rapid growth and immediate product development over preventive measures. Recognizing this tension, Eric adopted a proportional investment approach. Instead of spending time and resources on extensive training programs, he focused on addressing minor issues promptly. This approach allowed startups to maintain efficiency while gradually improving their processes. The 5 Whys method became a natural speed regulator for Eric. By systematically identifying and mitigating root causes of problems, startups could adapt and improve their processes incrementally. This method helped teams operate at their optimal pace without compromising on quality. However, the 5 Whys method can also lead to common pitfalls if not managed properly. To avoid these issues, Eric recommends several strategies. 1. Create a supportive environment. Ensure that all affected parties are present during the analysis to foster a sense of ownership and accountability. 2. Establish clear rules. Encourage a culture of tolerance and continuous improvement by setting simple rules like never allow the same mistake to be made twice. 3. Facilitate learning. Appoint a 5 Whys master to guide and monitor the process, ensuring accountability and consistency. 4. Start small and be specific. Begin with narrowly targeted classes of symptoms to ease the team into the method and provide clear milestones for improvement. One of the most compelling examples of these strategies comes from IGN, where Eric applied the 5 Whys method. Despite initial challenges, the product development team at IGN showed significant progress under the right leadership and structured approach. The key to IGN's success lies in creating a supportive environment where everyone was involved, establishing clear rules for continuous improvement, and facilitating learning through the appointment of a 5 Whys master. Let's take a closer look at the case study of QuickBooks, which faced significant challenges due to delayed customer feedback and inefficient development processes. Greg Wright, a key player at QuickBooks, realized the importance of incorporating customer feedback into the development process. By implementing a new approach that involved cross-functional collaboration, QuickBooks was able to gather customer feedback directly and more efficiently. This shift resulted in a faster development cycle and better alignment with customer needs. To sum up, Eric Schmidt's experience at IMVU underscores the critical balance between speed and quality in startup environments. His initial reluctance to invest in training reflects the common challenge many startups face, but his adoption of a proportional investment approach allowed them to maintain efficiency while improving processes. The 5 Whys method, while powerful, requires careful management to prevent common pitfalls. By fostering a supportive environment, establishing clear rules, facilitating learning, and starting small, startups can effectively apply the 5 Whys method and achieve meaningful proportional investments. So, whether you're a founder looking to build an adaptive organization or a startup leader striving for efficiency and quality, understanding the importance of balancing speed and quality and the role of the 5 whys method can be game-changing. Remember, the key is to start small, involve everyone, set clear rules, and continuously learn and improve. With these practices in place, you can create an environment where your team operates at its optimal pace while maintaining high standards of quality. Now, you know how big companies often struggle with innovation because of all those big bureaucratic structures? But guess what? Startups have an advantage here. They can overcome this challenge by adopting portfolio thinking, which basically means they think about their projects as part of a bigger plan or portfolio. For startups to be really good at innovation, they need 3 important things. They need scarce but secure resources, they need independent authority, and they need a personal stake in the outcome. These are like the 3 building blocks that help startups build amazing stuff. Now, think about a startup where you have a bunch of ideas and you're trying to decide which one to work on. You want to make sure you don't lose sight of any of them because you might come up with something amazing that no one else thought of yet. So, you want to keep some of these ideas safe and protected, but also give them some independence so they can try out new things without worrying about losing everything. This is where the independent authority comes in. The startup needs the freedom to make decisions and take risks without having to answer to everyone else. It's like when you're playing a game and you get to choose which rules to follow. If someone else tells you what to do, you might not have as much fun or creativity. And finally, the personal stake in the outcome means that everyone involved in the project has a piece of the pie. Maybe it's a share of the profits or just a feeling of accomplishment. This makes people work harder and smarter because they know their hard work will pay off in the end. So, to sum it up, startups need to be like a well-oiled machine, each part doing its job, but still working together towards a common goal. And the best way to do that is by giving each part the space, power, and motivation they need. But here's the thing though, this doesn't mean the startup can go rogue. They still need to be protected from the rest of the company. Imagine if you had a lemonade stand, but your parents were watching over it. You'd probably have more fun experimenting with new flavors and ways to sell lemonade, right? That's kind of what this idea is about. So, the author suggests creating a platform for experimentation and empowering autonomous teams. This means giving startups the space to try things out without having to worry about damaging the whole business. And while the startup is developing and marketing new products, the parent organization needs to protect them and hold managers accountable. By shifting the focus from protecting the startup to protecting the parent organization, companies can better support innovation and avoid that old-fashioned defensive attitude. And this is important because it leads to sustainable success, meaning the startup keeps growing and improving over time. That's the essence of the chapter. Next, we'll talk about the sandbox approach. Think of it like a special playground where startups can play and learn without disturbing the rest of the business. Isn't that neat? So, let's wrap it up with the next excerpt. The author talks about how startups can use this sandbox approach to foster innovation within larger organizations. It's like having a sandbox where you can test new ideas without affecting the whole playground. And that's really important because it helps keep the organization flexible and responsive to change. The sandbox has some key features. First, it isolates the experiment so it doesn't affect the whole system until it proves successful. Second, it limits the scope of the experiment to a certain area, like just testing a new feature on a specific part of the app. Third, it gives the team a set amount of time to complete the experiment and evaluate it. Fourth, it uses standard metrics to compare different experiments fairly. Fifth, it puts the team in a cross-functional role to allow them to collaborate and innovate. Sixth, it focuses on small, iterative cycles to get immediate feedback. Seventh, it holds the team accountable by setting clear milestones. Eighth, it can expand the sandbox as it grows, always keeping a tight grip on the overall system. Ninth, it involves stakeholders who understand the risks and benefits of the sandbox. And the author really emphasizes that the sandbox isn't just about experimentation, it's about validation. He explains that while speed is important, the real goal is to validate learning. And he shows us how this idea contrasts with traditional measures of efficiency, like coding time. Instead of focusing on getting stuff done fast, he says we should focus on completing the build, measure, learn cycle as quickly as possible. He also mentions tools like the root cause analysis and fast response techniques to help manage productivity losses during transitions. And guess what? The Lean Startup framework is adaptable and fits each company differently. It's not about copying someone else's ideas, it's about finding the right balance that works for your team. Lastly, he encourages startups to engage with a community of practice, whether in person or online. This is like having a group of friends who share ideas and help each other grow. It's crucial because it helps you master these concepts and explore them fully. So that's the sandbox approach. It's about balancing experimentation with control, and it's all about validation and learning. Isn't that cool? All right, that wraps up our discussion on the next chapter. Remember, startups are like little companies, and they need the same tools and mindset to thrive. By following these ideas, startups can become the innovators they were meant to be. Taylor's groundbreaking work fundamentally changed management practices by emphasizing efficiency, standardization, and scientific analysis. But here's the thing, while his methods were incredibly effective, they also had some unintended consequences. Taylor's approach often treated workers as mere automata, ignoring the critical role of collective imagination and innovation. Fast forward to the Lean Startup movement, which emerged as a response to these limitations. This movement, inspired by Taylor's ideas, advocates for a more holistic approach to managing innovation. It focuses on the entire organization rather than just individual tasks, aiming to prevent wasteful activities and ensure resources are used efficiently and effectively. Despite making significant strides, the Lean Startup still faces challenges in aligning with modern management practices, especially in product development and entrepreneurship. Current management practices, though efficient, often lack scientific rigor and fail to fully utilize the creativity and potential of workers. So, what's at stake here? The potential pitfalls of the Lean Startup include the risk of over-reliance on efficiency tools without considering the emotional and psychological needs of employees. This can lead to burnout and decreased morale, undermining the very innovation and creativity that the Lean Startup aims to promote. To address these issues, the author proposes creating startup testing labs. These labs are designed to be small, cross-functional teams that can experiment with different product development methodologies. They focus on solving real-world customer problems under varying conditions of uncertainty. By using innovative metrics like innovation accounting to hold teams accountable, these labs aim to foster a culture of continuous improvement and learning. Another key idea is the long-term stock exchange, LTSE, which seeks to foster long-term thinking among startups. This is achieved by rewarding executives based on company performance and encouraging greater freedom for management to pursue long-term investments. While this approach requires higher transaction costs, it helps discourage short-term trading and maintain stability. The author argues that the Lean Startup must strike a balance between scientific rigor and human ingenuity. He envisions an organization where employees are empowered to test their visions rigorously and adapt quickly. This balance leads to faster learning, more agile businesses, and sustained value creation. In essence, the epilogue of the Lean Startup reminds us that while Taylor's scientific management principles were revolutionary, they also had their flaws. The Lean Startup movement, born out of this recognition, seeks to address those flaws by embracing both the scientific rigor needed for efficiency and the human ingenuity required for innovation. It's a journey towards creating organizations that not only excel in efficiency, but also inspire and empower their workforce to innovate and succeed. Welcome to Chapter 14 of the Lean Startup, where we dive into the world of joining the movement. This chapter is all about finding the right resources to help you on your entrepreneurial journey. Whether you're an experienced entrepreneur or just starting out, the lean startup movement has become incredibly popular, and there's a wealth of information available to help you grow your business. First things first, let's talk about events. There are so many great gatherings around the world where like-minded entrepreneurs come together to share ideas, challenges, and successes. You can find a real-time map of meetups here. Less than http://lean-startup.meetup.com/. You can also find a list of cities where people are interested in starting a new group and tools to set one up yourself. If you're looking for something more structured, the Startup Lessons Learned conference has been running for the past 2 years and offers a wealth of knowledge and networking opportunities. You can find more details here. http://sllconf.com. Now, let's talk about books. Steve Blank's book, The 4 Steps to the Epiphany, is a cornerstone of the lean startup movement. When I was building IMVU, a dog-eared copy of this book always followed me everywhere. It's an indispensable guide and can be found here, less than http://0 steps. Additionally, Brant Cooper and Patrick Vlaskovits have created a shorter and excellent book called The Entrepreneur's Guide to Customer Development. You can buy it here, http://custdev.com. Both books offer great insights into customer development, which is a crucial aspect of any startup. There are also many blogs and online communities where you can find valuable content. Dave McClure, founder of 500 Startups, writes a blog at less than http://500hatstypepad.com and maintains an excellent blog as well, less than http://blog500startups.com. Sean Ellis runs the Startup Marketing blog, which has been influential in my thinking about integrating marketing into startups. Andrew Chen's blog, Futuristic Play, is one of the best sources for thoughts on viral marketing, startup metrics, and design. Babak Nivi writes the excellent blog Venture Hacks, and he's since gone on to create Angel List, which matches startups and investors around the world. Other fantastic lean startup blogs include Running Lean, Sean Murphy's blog on early-stage software startups, Brant Cooper's Market by Numbers, and Patrick Vlaskovits' blog on technology, customer development, and pricing. You can find these blogs and more at less than http://venturehacks.com. The lean startup movement has become global, and there are countless resources available to aspiring entrepreneurs. These resources range from books and blogs to meetups and conferences. The most important resources, however, are local. You don't need to be in Silicon Valley anymore to find other entrepreneurs to share ideas and struggles with. However, being embedded in a startup ecosystem is still an important part of entrepreneurship. So, whether you're looking for a new idea, advice on customer development, or inspiration for your next project, the lean startup movement has got you covered. Just remember, reading is good, but action is even better. So, take what you've learned, put it into practice, and keep iterating until you reach your goals. So, we're talking about joining the movement in the lean startup. This is all about how to make your way into this exciting world of entrepreneurship. Imagine you're a startup founder, and you want to join the lean startup movement. It's like finding a community of like-minded individuals who share your passion for innovation and growth. The first thing you might consider is attending events. There are so many great gatherings around the world where entrepreneurs come together to share ideas, challenges, and successes. You can find a real-time map of meetups here. Less than http://leanstartup.meetup.com. But don't just go to these meetups blindly. It's important to choose ones that align with your specific interests and goals. For example, if you're passionate about healthcare, look for meetups focused on health technology. If you're interested in education, look for meetups dedicated to EdTech. By choosing the right events, you'll not only find other entrepreneurs, but also valuable resources and support networks. Another great way to join the lean startup movement is by joining online communities and forums. Websites like Reddit have subreddits dedicated to entrepreneurship, where you can engage with other entrepreneurs, ask questions, and share your experiences. LinkedIn groups are also fantastic places to connect with other professionals in your field and learn from others' successes and failures. Lastly, don't underestimate the power of networking. Meet with other entrepreneurs, whether it's at local coffee shops, tech meetups, or even virtual meetups. Building relationships with other entrepreneurs can provide invaluable insights and help you navigate the challenges of starting and growing a business. In summary, joining the lean startup movement is all about finding the right community and resources to support your entrepreneurial journey. By attending relevant events, joining online communities, and networking with other entrepreneurs, you'll not only find the support you need, but also the inspiration to turn your vision into a reality. So, start reaching out, connecting, and making your mark in this exciting world of entrepreneurship.